Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Let's get after it.
On January 28th of 2024, a mother posted the following footage that she caught on her home security camera. The mother stated this video was recorded inside her bedroom where various instances of paranormal activity had been taking place. In one of these instances, her daughter ran out of the room claiming she heard a woman scream. The mother was confused as she did not hear anyone scream, but upon checking the footage, she saw this. A scream from out of nowhere sends her daughter running out of the room. Now it's possible the camera was hacked, but this still does not explain the other strange activity that's been going on in her home. The mother believes this video is evidence of something supernatural. Whether or not that's the case, this video is still pretty creepy.
Alright, he says that there's other supposed paranormal activity in the home, but then doesn't go into detail about what that is, so we've got nothing to go off here except for this video. So I'm going to say this is probably a hacking situation, and probably some jerk hacked into their camera and scared their little girl. That's probably what's going on here. I doubt this is something paranormal.
Two friends were doing a live stream around 3 AM while playing video games. It is now 5 AM and the console is set up in the living room, which is where they have the camera recording, and in the background leading to the kitchen, an unexplainable sound can be heard. Thinking it was a family member grabbing something from the fridge at night, they dismissed it with not much attention. However, just moments after, something else happens, something they can't ignore.
Oh, itulah. Pernah boleh. Ini.
The door opens by itself, and when one of the boys goes over to close it, a chair slides across on its own, leaving the boys completely shocked in disbelief as to what they just saw. But the scariest thing is that we can see a dark shadow moving past the boys, which clearly doesn't belong to them as the movements don't match up. So this does seem like a genuine paranormal experience.
If you've watched this channel for any length of time, you know that I'm extremely skeptical. Most of these videos where you see a chair sliding around and stuff is just someone pulling on a string. I cannot help but look at it that way because I know for a fact that a lot of them are faked that way. But to be hours into a live stream at 3 o'clock in the morning and have something like this happen right as you're fixing to call it quits, that would take quite a bit of dedication to pull that off. So I'm not going to jump to conclusions and assume that that's what's happening here.
Did they create some type of frequency and vibration, which...
Yeah. There's a famous Sumerian cylinder scroll. I'm going to send you a copy of this image. You see an Anunnaki god, you call him a god with a lowercase g. He's sitting on this box. This box has a symbol for magnetism on it, okay? And this ancient Sumerian tablet. And then, so he's sitting here with this box. There's this tripod thing up in the air, and it's got this disc. Underneath the disc is a gigantic stone table, and as human beings, you can tell they're human because their height compared to this guy, they're tiny. And a human is picking it up with one hand. That disc is a cymatic frequency. You can perfectly match. I found the exact frequency, and I have a video on that frequency, which creates that exact same cymatic pattern. And so that cymatic pattern and magnetism in some way reduce the weight of that gigantic stone table, allowing an average normal human being to pick it up with one hand. I'm gonna send you this image. Pretty interesting stuff. So when you now say, well, how do they do all this? Cymatic frequencies and magnetism, electromagnetism and cymatic frequencies, in some way together, they combine those two things to reduce the weight. They didn't make them completely weightless, but they significantly reduced the weight of a lot of the stones. The second thing is, Thoth gives away something else in the emerald tablets. He utilizes cymatic frequencies and photons to manifest solid matter. Now that sounds crazy in ancient tablets, but guess what happened 2 years ago? In a laboratory, in the world we live in right now, scientists got together and they combined cymatic frequencies and photons, and for the first time ever created solid matter. That's in physics.org.
I tell you, this makes me think about Coral Castle. If you're familiar with that at all, the few people who actually witnessed that guy moving rocks around and stuff talk about him using a tripod with some weird device at the top of it to move these huge rocks. It kind of sounds like he rediscovered the technology that the Anunnaki were using to build the pyramids. And to the best of my knowledge, it's never been discovered how that guy was doing what he did. But someone could have figured it out by now. But that's 100% what it sounds like. Hey, if you're enjoying this video and you like this kind of content, I make a new one just like it every day, Monday through Friday. It'd be awesome if you'd hit that subscribe button and come back tomorrow to join me.
Veterans, we all know veterans. We all know all the people who served and all the veterans and all the great souls and all of those people. Those people actually used to be able to work with chiropractors, but they were also eliminated. Chiropractors were eliminated from working with veterans. So what did veterans get instead? Pills and drugs to make them go crazy and give them a whole bunch of side effects. So when you start to think about that situation, chiropractors used to be able to work with veterans, but then they were eliminated by the AMA. So they got drugs and poisons instead. There was a letter on August 13th, 1973 to a hospital administrator declared that any arrangement that you made with chiropractors at your hospital would be unacceptable from the Joint Committee. The AMA, that's who's saying. So all hospitals had to eliminate chiropractors overnight because they were told from the committee, which is about allegedly helping you and whatever else. And this is what this book goes into, and that's why it's such a very deep book for people to understand.
So my very limited and very basic understanding of the study of chiropractics, it falls in line with the mainstream pop culture narrative regarding chiropractors. To my understanding, the science behind that field of study is all bogus and all bunk, and they can't do 90% of the stuff that they claim to be able to do. But again, this is off the narrative that I've seen from TV shows and movies and stuff of them making fun of that practice. So I'm curious, do we have any chiropractors in the audience? Do we have anyone that can tell me, is chiropractics junk science or is it legitimate? I know some of the claims that they make about being able to cure certain types of cancer and stuff by popping your bones, there's no way that's true. But the idea of reducing inflammation through some of these techniques and stuff that they use and healing certain parts of the body through lowering that inflammation, that makes sense on the surface. I just don't know that much about it.
Is about an event that never happened.
For an event that never happened, FAA official John Callahan certainly has a lot of evidence.
They brought the voice tapes.
He kept audio recordings between the cockpit and the tower as the incident unfolded. He has 30 minutes of taped radar that confirms the UFO, a chart that documents all the objects in the 747's flight path, and the official FAA report.
Event that never happened.
According to Callahan, all of this was presented to the CIA in a private meeting.
When the pilot first reported the UFO, he described it as a huge ball with lights running around it. He said it was about 4 times bigger than the 747 he was riding. And remember, the 747 has an elevator. And he's looking out the window and he sees something that's 4 times the size of his aircraft.
What you're about to see and hear are excerpts from the actual radar and cockpit conversations as the incident unfolded.
No notes for the impact force absolute. Center 1620, so I'm picking up a hit on the radar, approximately 5 miles in trail, your 6 o'clock position. Do you concur? Center 1620, sir, if you're able to identify the type of aircraft, if you can tell whether it's military or civilian. We cannot identify Okay. It is what? It is an unknown. Okay, we've lost contact with it now.
2030. We're almost on time. I think we'll be within 20 seconds or so. So one time he says it's over here at 12 o'clock and 8 miles, and when the antenna goes by, we see a target there. 10 seconds later, it is now behind him, 6-7 miles behind him. So it's going from 8 miles out here to 6 or 7 miles back here, really in only 5 or 6 seconds. When I went back to headquarters, I gave Admiral England a quick briefing and showed him the video. He set up a briefing with the President Reagan scientific staff. He told me my function was to hand this operation off to those people. And those people ended up being the CIA, the President's group, a bunch of grunts that came to the meeting. The CIA said to all the people there, this event never happened. We were never here. And you're all sworn to secrecy. We are confiscating all this data. And they did. They took everything that was in the room. In those days, when you printed out something from the computer...
Fortunately, he kept copies of everything back in his office.
That's the end of my speech. Who are you going to believe? Your lying eyes or the government?
So that's just a really good example of someone coming out and saying, hey, I was involved in a government cover-up of UFO activity, and I've got the evidence to back up my claim. And I'd be interested to see what eventually happened to this guy, if he ended up unaliving himself in a parking lot or something, because this far predates the whistleblower protections that they now claim to have.
Already in Paris, several cases of lupus have been healed with utilizing radium. Lupus healed utilizing radium. There is also evidence that it can help restore sight in certain cases of blindness. Radium, that's what that is. So that's why you gotta stay away from it. That's number one. Now here's another one, the miracle of radium. A little blind girl in New York who had never had the sensation of light began to see a little after an experiment with radium. So eyesight, complete blindness, can be healed utilizing radium. I don't think the rock drug system is going to tell us that. And here, interestingly enough, is a treatment of radium with lupus. And this is what they would do. They would take a little vial of radium in a little bottle, put it close to the person, and they would get the ionizing radiation, which is the sun energy, to heal the person. So that's why you got to stay away from it.
It's difficult to listen to any of this stuff in regards to healthcare and determine whether or not it's valid, because we're lied to so much about even the most basic concepts whenever it comes to our healthcare system. Even the food that we eat, we're not given direct answers on what we should and shouldn't be eating. They tell us one day that we need to be eating a plant-based diet. Then the next day they tell us that we need to be eating red meat because that's the best place to get your protein. Then they tell you the day after that to quit eating red meat because it's causing heart disease. It seems like you've got all these studies going on at the same time that are all studying the same thing, but everybody gets a different outcome on their studies, and it has nothing to do with the data and stuff from the study as to why they got the outcome they got. It all has to do with who funded the study. Isn't it funny how that happens? Whoever funds the study seems to get the data that they're looking for.
The Vatican has 53 miles of secret archives, 12 centuries worth of information, which at one point required 180 terabytes of storage. However, unless you're 75 and a scholar, all of that information is completely off limits. However, that didn't stop some people from being curious, which actually led to the release of the Vatileaks. It details the corruption, blackmailing, and sexual abuse that goes inside of the Vatican. The leaks showed somebody had already figured that out, and they were blackmailing the Vatican. So the way they blackmailed them, they said, you're gonna give us these contracts for this work. So they would get contractors to work on projects for them, and they'll overpay them. And that's how they would pay their blackmail off. However, apparently that pales into comparison to what they're actually holding inside of the Vatican. And people believe that there is a secret archive available to only the Pope himself. What's inside of that archive though? Allegedly, the stipulation goes that there are bones from extraterrestrial beings, the actual true history of humanity, lost technology, and apparently even the Vatican's very own Black Bible. What do you think about the fact that...
So this is the first that I've heard of the Vata leaks. I don't know how well known this is, but if someone was blackmailing them to get money, why were they not blackmailing them to get this information and stuff out of the Vatican archives? Not that I'm promoting blackmail at all, but if I had the capability and had the dirt on them, I'd be blackmailing them to try to get information out of those archives. And then after I got the information I wanted, I would spill the beans and let everybody know what's going on behind the scenes. Because if there's stuff going on that's so bad that they're actually allowing someone to blackmail them, that information needs to be made public.
There does seem to be some kind of a massive cover-up of something. The earliest pictures we have of like these big cities are like from like the 1850s, and they're these massive cities, and they look very similar than they do today, actually, except for more grain looking, massive buildings, and there's like hardly any people out on the streets, like nobody. And sometimes in many cases, it looks like muddy streets. And it's like, okay, so where are all the people at? It's very odd to have a giant city like that with no people. And then when you start to see people later, in like sometimes you have these early videos of like these cities like Paris and London, and all of the people are dressed really nice, like dressed to the nines, like aristocrat looking people. And then you're like, there's just something so off about this. Like I can't really kind of put my finger on it, but something's really off. And then you start to see the orphan train thing, and you're like, okay, so wait a minute, these things have to be related. And that's why I started to make the connections, like, wait a minute, the people who are dressed like that were not working in factories, right? They weren't working in fields, they weren't working in factories. These people look very rich. So maybe pictures with nobody in them in these big cities, maybe the orphan trains were related to the fact that they needed people to go work in the factories. And then if you go look in more old pictures, kids working in factories, kids working in fields, kids doing all these random jobs. And then you see the insane asylums. Okay, so between like 1860 and 1929 in America, there's 250,000 kids on orphan trains. Again, the population is much bigger now. That number is huge now. It's way bigger then. And then there was 150,000 people in insane asylums. Okay, so the math actually makes sense, like that, were these the parents of these kids? And then the kids get shipped all around the world, all around the country, at least here. And I know it was a worldwide thing. And then you see like the things. So there's like 0 insane asylums now. There was like 1,500 of them in like 1900. There's like 0 orphanages now. Like all these things that are just, they don't have them anymore. And if you go look at the buildings that were prisons, orphanages, and insane asylums, and they're all these massive castle-style looking buildings. You ever notice that?
Yeah.
It seems very clear that, to me at this point, that those buildings were repurposed. Because you would not build a castle and then turn it into a prison. You would not build a castle and then turn it into a insane asylum or an orphanage. Because they don't look like that. Like, why would you spend that much money doing that unless it was already there and they needed use for it, and that's what they chose to use it for? If you believe kind of the mud flood story, and even if you don't believe, if you're not a Christian, you don't believe in the whole little season idea, you have to believe that the controllers, or whoever you want to call them, literally burned cities down, murdered people, threw people into insane asylums to hide stuff. They literally burned down the best buildings you've ever seen, that we've never seen, I guess now. You know, the best buildings ever created in order to hide something. So what could they be hiding? I think what seems very clear and obvious, it's something you could not even imagine. Like, it's bigger than you can even imagine. Because that's the only reason people would do that, right? Am I wrong? I mean, like, you're talking about a worldwide thing that this happened in order to cover up something. And the history books don't write about the reason for all the mud. They don't write about all this stuff.
Yeah, there's nothing deeper. This is like the very bottom of the rabbit hole. There's nothing deeper than Little Season, than what happened in the 1800s and 90s. There's nothing deeper than this, because this explains everything.
The more that we dig into this whole mud flood theory, the more it starts to seem like this absolutely took place. And like there's some massive cover-up. Cover-up of what? I have no idea. My best guess is the Tartarian civilization. I don't know why they would try to cover up the Tartarians. That part of the mystery eludes me, but there's definitely something going on. There's definitely too many instances of entire cities being burned to the ground. There's too many instances of these massive ornate buildings and stuff that were being used for things that just didn't make any sense. Why would you have this big, beautiful building and then house insane people in it? That makes zero sense at all. And if you look at the way that they treated their insane back then, you can't explain it away as, oh, well, they just needed a nice place for these people to live so that they would remain calm, because they didn't care about the comfort level of the patients back then. Hence the lobotomy, hot and cold plunges, things like that. They didn't care about the comfort of the patients, so it's not like they built these big elaborate places just so people would have a beautiful place to live.
On the morning of the solar eclipse, a boy was preparing his lunch around 7 a.m. to eat later at school, while everyone else was still asleep upstairs, when the home security camera in the room captures something disturbing. An unsettling voice can be heard saying, "How did you find me?" followed by a louder "Hey." The boy states that the voice came from somewhere around the kitchen cabinets, but knowing he was the only one present down there at the time, left him deeply afraid. Terrified, he runs straight to his mum's bedroom as she hears him screaming, and she then gives her side of the story, where things get even more creepy.
Okay, so yesterday, y'all know I posted a video of my son, who's 11, by the way, y'all, because I know a lot of people keep saying, like, oh, you can't be afraid, you can't feed off of it, you can't run. He's 11. He doesn't understand, he doesn't know. This is his first encounter. This is, you know, something new and fresh to him, so he really doesn't understand. Okay, so he gets up around 7 a.m. every day, and he decided to make some noodles, which he told me that he was making for lunch to take to school. So he was in the kitchen making some noodles. He said that he heard a voice coming from the cabinets that said to him, "How did you find me?" When he dropped his noodles, he ran upstairs, came busting in my room, jumping all over my bed, hiding in the corner, screaming and hollering, saying he didn't want to die. Somebody was in the house, somebody was in the house, telling me to get mine because somebody was in the house, somebody was in the house. And I'm like trying to tell him to calm down, be quiet, so I can hear what he's saying. Like, nobody's in the house. I kept telling him, nobody's in the house, like, calm down. What is wrong? What happened? But like, he kept yelling. I'm like, calm down. So then I call my dad. I'm like, Dad, man saying somebody in the house, he won't get out of my room so that I can get them out the closet so I can figure stuff out, and he would not move. At the point, my dad was like talking to him, telling him to get out the room or to be quiet, and he finally did get a little bit quiet. We started hearing footsteps. I mean, big, heavy feet coming up the steps. So like now at this point, I'm terrified. I throw my robe on. I push him into the room with his brothers. I started coming down the steps with nothing in my hands. At this point, I'm just thinking I'm going to have to knock somebody backwards up the steps and then just do what I got to do at this point, because I got 5 kids in here.
Big footsteps were heard right after the strange voice, but as she rushes downstairs, she sees nobody there. Not sure if someone was in the house or not, she's left freaked out. Her son then tells their neighbor about what had happened, and the neighbor tells him something that makes him even more frightened of the place.
Hey y'all, part 2 of our ghost friend. Okay, so fast forward back to April 8th. Man had told my neighbor, like, hey, I had the spirit talk to me this morning. She asked me, how did you find me? And she's like, oh, I know her. I know the spirit. She's a friendly spirit. Like, that's my friend. She had died in the house at 70 years old from a heart attack. And I'm like, girl, what? And why would you tell him that? Because he already freaking out. And he had came and he's like, Mommy, I went to school today and I searched up the house and a girl died in the house also. And I'm like, hell nah. Like, when I move, I don't look up the house history. I look up the schools, the neighborhood. That's it. I don't look at nothing else. Like, that's all I look up.
It seems the previous resident, an old woman, died there recently, and as the boy searched up the place, he discovered that a young girl also died there. His mother made the mistake of not searching up the history of the house before moving in, so something may be living with them. Her son remains terrified to be alone, asking his brother to come with him everywhere.
Do not leave me, please. I'll do anything. I'll do anything, please. I'll do anything.
Just what exactly was coming up the stairs that morning? Could it have been the ghost of the young girl or older woman who lost their lives? Or something else entirely?
Just the simple fact that they have a camera there makes me think that it is possible that somebody was hacking into that thing and talking to him through that camera. But I'm not making the claim that that's what's taking place here. I'm just simply pointing out that that's a possibility. After you've discovered that multiple people have died in the house and your son is this terrified that he can't even go into the kitchen by himself, it is definitely time to move.
A father was home alone after his daughter was attending school, yet out of nowhere this happens.
So, I don't know how to explain this, but my daughter's at school and I keep hearing something call. Did you hear that? Oh my God. Brooke, are you here? Brooklyn. Oh my God. There's literally no one here. Like, oh my.
He hears his daughter's voice coming from the room, but when he goes inside, there's nobody there. Then he hears the voice in the room while he's there and gets creeped out. Could this be the result of a mimic, or is it just an intricate ruse? Once again, you judge.
So a lot of people are not going to like my explanation on this one, but I think this is fake. I think this guy added the sound of his daughter talking over the video after he filmed the video. I don't buy his reactions. I don't buy his thought process of entering the room. If he knows for a fact that his daughter's supposed to be at school and he hears her yelling from the other room, you're not going to go open that door. You're going to leave the house. As soon as he opened that door and saw that his daughter wasn't in the room, but she kept calling for him, but she wasn't responding directly to his request of, "Are you at home?" Yeah, there's no way he would open that door. I can't help but see this one is fake. But guys and gals, I'm going to go ahead and end the video right there. I hope you enjoyed these clips we watched together today. I'll be back with another video tomorrow. I hope you come back to join me. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you haven't already. Don't forget to check out www.barry-stepp.com if you'd like to order yourself a shirt or a hat. It helps me support the channel, and I greatly appreciate everyone who's ordered something so far. I'll be back tomorrow with another video. Don't forget to come back and join me. I hope everybody has a great, safe, fantastic rest of your Thursday, and I will see you tomorrow.